My name is Lucita Vela. I'm an assistant professor at Texas State University in the Athletic Training Education program, and I'm also the clinical education coordinator. I'm originally from the state of Texas. I have my undergraduate degree from Texas Women's University in kinesiology, my master's from Barry University, and the degrees in athletic training, and my PhD from Penn State University, and that's an athletic training degree with a specialization in kinesiology. I've been here at Texas State now for 6 years, and in my job I help athletic training students to become athletic trainers. We have an entry-level program at the undergraduate level, and we have a post-professional athletic training education program at the master's level as well. So to become an athletic trainer, the educational background includes an athletic training, or a person interested in athletic training has to have a degree. Now they can have what we call an entry-level degree, which means a bachelor's degree, which is the minimum, or they can choose to go and get their athletic training degree as a master's for entry-level education. So those are the people who decide to come to athletic training maybe later in life, who already have an undergrad degree and want to seek a post-undergrad degree and also get all the requirements for athletic training. So typically when you want to become an athletic trainer, you have to find what's called a CATI accredited program. CATI is just the accrediting body that goes and says this school is doing the right things and following the standards and guidelines to teach a student how to properly become an athletic trainer. And so there's a number of those programs in the United States, and Texas State is one of those programs. And so they specify very specifically, here are the courses that an athletic trainer should be taking, here are the competencies, here are the proficiencies, and here are the types of clinical education experiences they should get. So not only do you have to have a bachelor's degree at the very least, but you need to have a bachelor's degree in athletic training. The only exception to that rule may be actually here in the state of Texas, in which we actually have what's called a licensure state, which means that you can become licensed as an athletic trainer without having to go through a CATI accredited program. The difference with that, those type of programs, is they're considered internships. They're very much hands-on, practical-based educational programs where most of the learning you do occurs at a clinical site rather than having traditional classes. I think I like the model of accredited programs because it takes the balance between getting all the coursework but also having the clinical education experiences, so I think the students are better well-rounded. Particular here for Texas State is we do have requirements to get into the program. So Texas State's program focuses the requirements on having a good background in the sciences. So we require a number of classes, just to 5 basic classes that kind of show us that you're ready to proceed within our program. In addition, within those 5 classes that are science-based, you have to have a B or higher. You have to have a minimum GPA of at least 2.75. And you also have to have some observation hours. Once you complete all of those things, in addition to some basic skills checks that are part of a class that is required to take, then you can submit an application and then sit for an interview. Upon interviewing, then all of those characteristics and requirements are placed into a spreadsheet, and we're able to come up with a list of viable candidates, and then we extend the invitation to join our program to 18 students. And so it is a competitive program, not everybody's assured to be in it. And so once we have those 18 students, that's their cohort. So they're going to be in our program for at least 3 years longer, doing a combination of classes and clinical education, where they get a variety of experiences with different types of sports and physically active populations, and maybe get to interact with physicians and a variety of other people who are helpful with helping them progress with their skills. So for an athletic trainer, the work hours actually depend on setting. But I can tell you honestly, this is a profession in which people work pretty long hours. A work week can vary from as few as 30 hours a week up to 80 hours a week. It just really depends on a number of things, whether or not you're working at a high school, college, a clinic, or professional sports, whether or not if you are assigned to specific teams to work with them and provide healthcare services for them, whether or not they're in season or not, whether or not you're required to travel with the team, and the list goes on and on. So For the most part, most of our students who leave our program and get their first job tend to work in high school and colleges, and they're pretty much assured they're going to have about a 50 to 70-hour work week as an expectation on average. So it does require quite a bit of work. And so finding balance and quality of life is always an interesting challenge for the profession. So that's why people have to be really passionate about what they do. And I already referred to job settings as being varied in athletic training. There's actually many more job settings nowadays for athletic trainers. It used to be if you were an athletic trainer, you worked in one or two settings at high school or college. And now we're starting to see them in clinics, working alongside with PTs, as physician extenders, working alongside with orthopedic surgeons. You're seeing them in the military setting, and other non-traditional settings like the industrial work environment to work with what they call industrial athletes. They also can work in performing arts and other non-traditional sports like NASCAR and rodeo. And so those tend to be the major environments or settings that athletic trainers can work, in addition obviously to pro, which is what you see every Sunday if you're watching football or whatever team you're watching on TV. But those, by far, are the fewest jobs you can find is with the pro sports. For our athletic training students, we always encourage them to be active. We have a very active athletic training and sports medicine club, and I think it's really important because I think to become a well-rounded athletic trainer, you have to understand your role as an athletic trainer in service activities and as a professional. So we encourage our students to do any kind of professional activities possible. You know, maybe going to a regional or state or national conference, taking part in organizations on campus, and maybe even off campus that help provide a service to people, because ultimately it doesn't have to be all about athletic training, but by doing service for others, it really helps you to understand the nature of athletic training. But there are other things like summer camps, which are really helpful, you know, being a first aider. All of those things are really helpful with for our students. I think to be a successful athletic trainer, there has to be a willingness to work with others, because you very, very rarely work in isolation. And you're working with patients is really important, so communication skills are important. Being compassionate and empathetic is really important as well. Being persistent. Sometimes you have bad news that you have to convey to either a coach or parent or an athlete, and it's not easy, but being resilient in the face of people maybe not agreeing with you or even not wanting to hear the message you have to give is important. I think you have to be really excited about the science, anatomy and physiology in particular, and you have to be willing to be outgoing to a certain extent, because you are we're a people-oriented profession, and so you have to be willing to put yourself out there quite a bit. For me personally, the most satisfying aspect of my job is to see students, once they've left me, become successful. I think students usually, when you're here, you know, I think they're so in the zone of trying to get their work done and do what they need to do to get done, that it's just really nice to see them in an environment where they're happy after they've graduated, where they're successful, getting paid, and doing what they want to do. That's really nice to see them years later and see that they really, that it was a good choice for them and that we really helped them on their path. What can be frustrating, you know, at times just the everyday, that's every job. Every job has its daily grind that can get frustrating. Just as important, you know, I think interacting with people is really important, and sometimes it can be the most frustrating thing because you can't control how people respond or what they want to do. So sometimes that can be frustrating too. Sometimes motivating students can be frustrating, but we're lucky we deal with students that tend to be really highly motivated. And so those tend to be the most frustrating parts. And then juggling, I think for me, it's just trying to find enough time to do all the parts of my job, in addition to doing research, in addition to prepping for classes, to really do it well. The advice I'd give to somebody pursuing this career is just to be really fully aware of what this career is all about. I think a lot of times people have their first exposure to an athletic trainer in a high school, and they see only a very small window of what that athletic trainer does behind the scenes, and they think, this is what I want to do. Just simply based on that first observation, I think it's really important to recognize that athletic training is becoming more and more like other healthcare professions, and that's a good thing, but that also means that that person has to be ready to be a healthcare provider in this current environment, and to be a professional in that way. And so I think for them it's just doing a little work. So I think if they're interested in pursuing this career, I think shadowing someone is really key and vital. Going to our National Athletic Trainers Association website is also really helpful because it helps people to understand what it is that we really do. And I think also just trying it out a little bit is important, because you never know if this is the right fit for you unless you've tried it for a little bit of time. It's easy to kind of make a judgment from a distance about it, but if you actually go and in our case, take a course like a AT 1298, which exposes you to athletic training but allows you to do some aspects of it to see if it really is a good fit for you. So that's what I would say as far as advice.
Alrighty, thank you.